Everyone, thank you so much for being for being here today. I'm Lori Piper with the International Division of the Kansas Department of Commerce, and we are very pleased to have Chef Edward Adele, professor and culinary instructor at Johnson County Community College, with us today to share insights for us on menu creation for international palates, dishes, and presentation. This is a webinar being offered as part of our World Class Welcome series. It is being recorded. It will be available on demand online afterward. We do ask that if you have any questions today, that you hold them until the end of the presentation, and then we will be answering questions. So with that, Chef Adele, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. We're really looking forward to learning from you today.
All right. Thank you. Welcome. I'm glad to be here. Um, so I put together a presentation to discuss my thoughts, views of what I think can help restaurateurs, operations um, in the local area with having a large amount of international guests coming, and the things that they might look for in a food and beverage hospitality industry operation, right? So I'll start with, what types of dishes could one choose to enhance their existing menu with all the people coming in. If we can think of this scenario uh, where within 45 minutes or an hour of Kansas City, all the hotels are filled and they're going to go to and from the stadium. As people move to and from the stadium, there's going to be such an abundance of people. All the restaurants could potentially be full, and on the guest route to and from the hotel or wherever they're staying to the stadium and back, or to the practice field and back, they may choose to eat along the way. And so they may not be able to venture to everywhere. I mean, one particular restaurant that has 200 seats, may not be able to handle every single person that comes. So they'll have to be spread out. So there should be a lot of business for everybody. And so how to make an individual operation, an individual restaurant have offerings uh, for an international guest. Now, at this point, we don't know where anybody's coming from. We don't know the teams. So I do know some people internationally that will just buy, oh, we're going to go to Kansas City and we're going to buy tickets. So whoever the team is they're going to see that no matter what nationality they originate from. But most people will probably wait and try and get in to the games that their team is, their country's team is going to be at. So anyway, so we'll start out with this question. you know, what types of dishes could one choose to enhance their existing menu? What is the what how do we feed international travels? How would you approach, traveling internationally, and the foods that you would choose to eat in a different country? The other thing an operational person should look at is what are the SKUs that they already have in their existing operation. What products are we already bringing in, and how can we manipulate those into something that our international guests might, be appealed to. You know, Many restaurants might, be a destination restaurant. We'll talk about barbecue, but barbecue is a good example. Maybe that's all you do. Maybe you don't have to, change anything for international because on barbecue or you might be another ethnic type group restaurant. But maybe if you're not, maybe if you're a local bar or pub, you might offer something. So we're going to look at those and talk about different foods of different regions of my thought process of how I would, if and depending upon the type of restaurant, would look at that. you know and so how do we meet these needs of what they want? Well, what are the needs? They're gonna, international people are gonna come here and they're gonna want to experience the foods of the Americas. Now we're in Kansas City, Kansas, you know and so but they consider it America, the whole place. So we have a lot of food out there to offer. And inside the state of Kansas and in Kansas City, we have lots of different types of specialty restaurants, regional type restaurants that people don't see those type of foods from around the world. So those are definitely options there to look at. You know, uh, so if we look at what is a true American defining dish, what are the true cuisines from the U.S.? What are some unique dishes that were developed in the U.S. and we're kind of known for, and people will come here and maybe adventure towards, right? That they don't get in their home country, right? Certain things that you can think of, like a Philly cheesesteak, right? Philadelphia has a pork roll, right? We're in the bread basket, corn, right? So do we have cornbread products? There's a whole array of different corn items that we can um, choose from to highlight. Not only just fresh corn in the summer, but also, there's different types of breads and cakes and things that enhance or utilize corn in a way. And so that would be one thing that, right? We have specialty dishes here that were developed out of different restaurants that have taken off and become uh, well known all over. Eggs Benedict is a particular one. You don't find this overseas. You find Eggs Benedict here in the United States. Um, if you look at things like the Kentucky Hot Brown, right? Maybe an alternative or the Louisville uh, version of Eggs Benedict. But again, these are things that are regional, that are here only inside the United States. And so these would be things that I would try to look for. Boston or New England clam chowder, right? I talked about, the Native Americans are here. The corn culture, helped our uh, colonial people, survive the winters. And that corn culture has created over the, decades, centuries, a whole variety of different dishes that people make with them. I mentioned Johnny cakes, but also hush puppies, fried mush. Um, Cornmeal crusted catfish, right? Or some other freshwater fish. So we have multiple ways to do that. And, cornmeal, flour, water, maybe some baking soda, baking powder, eggs, and different combinations and different varieties makes a whole variety of different options for people to enhance their menu with, right? Um, the United States also has specialty regional indigenous products that people can't get anywhere else, right? So, for example, like Gulf oysters. I don't know what kind of a restaurant you're in, but perhaps Gulf oysters or Gulf shrimp, right? Blue crabs are big, many regions around the United States. So, these is definitely a product in which you could use, right? In the spring, summer, molting season, soft shell crabs come around, so that could be an option too. And then we have other things out of the Gulf too, and crawfish. So snapper, a grouper, these type of fish, I think are an option to offer somebody. What are the unique indigenous products of the United States as a whole? You know, um, right? Talk about dishes, right? Um, in the United States, we are known for outside of our country for a couple different regional types of cuisines. Clearly, barbecue is one, and we will get to that. But also, we have Louisiana, the Mississippi Delta, and what is Cajun Creole. And we have here in Kansas City have several of those restaurants that have that regionality type of menu. And so these are things that I think people would come to try, as well. We have, I mentioned the Gulf and that type of product. We have Caribbean, Floridian style of food. Again, that would be, we have some restaurants here in Kansas City that, also have, this Cuban, Puerto Rican style menu that people from other countries may not be familiar with, and that might be a great option for them to try, right? We have a large Hispanic, Mexican community in Kansas City. And again, having border cuisine is definitely American, right? Tex-Mex, the cuisine of New Mexico, these, Indian fry breads, and the hatch chili. These are things that we only get here in the United States. And so this might be depending upon your restaurant and what you're doing, how you might be able to offer things, even though we're in Kansas City, we're gonna have a global audience here, and they're gonna want, perhaps to taste different things of our country, not only our state and our region. So um what are types of foods that you might find, popular in, um, with the different uh, uh, guests that are coming? So, depending upon the country that they come from, we might have uh, visitors that have a really high, flavor profile that they like. They like spicy, they like bold flavors, they like that. And so that guest might appreciate, something from, a New Orleans style, a spicy barbecue style, Southwestern style type of a dish, right? But we might also have people that come that, don't eat the spicy stuff so much, and they might have more of a milder, blander palate based on their country that they come from and the types of foods that they're used to. So perhaps from the southwestern side, they still would like to enjoy it, but perhaps they have Tex-Mex style with a little cheese and sour cream on there, kind of keeps the heat down. So we have to think about that, depending upon who is your guest, who is coming to your place, and how can you try to identify them and where they're from. You know, certain things out of Florida, the Caribbean part of the United States that people don't find everywhere. Hearts of palm, guava, right? Passion fruit, conch, these type of things we could take, and depending upon your style of restaurant and your menu and the SKUs that you have and the different products that you have, I would be open-minded to how can I find something unique, you know inside my restaurant, if I'm not directly a barbecue restaurant, which I think would be, or a big steakhouse. I think steak is another one from, Kansas City, but we'll get into that in just a minute. I was really going to just kind of talk about regionally, nationally first, and then kind of work our way down. Okay. So after we looked at those things, the next thing I think is big is if we go into barbecue and we think about barbecue, because I think, people are going to come to Kansas City and they're going to say, hey, let's go find some barbecue. But Kansas City, we have the representation of all the different styles of barbecue that are out there. So maybe we should just take just a minute and let me talk to you about how barbecue is classified so that you can understand it. And then when we talk about it, or when you look at it into your restaurant, you can kind of think about how would something fit in there, and or we'll talk about my thought process on what I would do depending upon type of restaurant, later on in my presentation. So barbecue is uh, uh, classified in two different formats. One of them is by sauce, right? Barbecue originates in the United States in the Carolinas. So North Carolina, right, is the home of all of the barbecue, right? They have the original one, which is a vinegar based barbecue, right? So they start out with that vinegar base, then later on it becomes mustard base. So we start adding mustard to it. And then we start adding tomato product to it. And then we have a thicker tomato product. So we have these four types of sauces that people would put on there. And we can see how these match with the other way that we categorize barbecue. We categorize barbecue in 4 or 5 different regions, styles. Carolina barbecue or Southern barbecue. We have Memphis style barbecue, Texas style barbecue, and Kansas City style barbecue. Right. And then the fifth one is really the coastal areas where they may grill out over a grill, and they would call that barbecue. But I think the one that sticks out the most is in Southern California, which would be tri-tip. But let's go into the other ones a little bit in depth. Carolina or Southern barbecue. Uh, while I do that, let me pull up my uh, pictures here so we can get a visual of what these are. Okay, so Carolina or Southern barbecue whole hog. This is the original form of what barbecue is. You know, a whole hog cooked over coals, and then they shred it all, and they put a spicy coleslaw on the top of it, vinegar-based mop, and they make a sandwich out of it. So this, you know, is definitely a style of barbecue that perhaps, I mean, we have some restaurants in Kansas City that are exactly like this. Not everything is Kansas City style here, but we do have a lot of variety, and so this is definitely something that potentially is an option uh, for someone depending upon their type of restaurant. I do think that people are going to come here. They may not come here and eat barbecue every day, but I am sure as I go to other countries and I would try to experience food there, I would come in mind with, okay, what is this place known for and where can I find it? And so by opening up those options inside your operation, you know, you'd have to change your whole menu, but perhaps one thing that you put on there, you know. So, and so this is a choice for an operation depending upon what they have. So the second style of barbecue, Memphis style. So Memphis style is as we move eastward, they get away from, or excuse me, westward. As they move westward, instead of cooking the whole hog, they start to separate it out. So they start to pull off and they smoke things individually. So ribs, they still would have the same type of pulled pork sandwich, but with pork butt only. So, and then the ribs, the meat is usually dry, sauce on the side. So dry rub, smoked, sauce on the side. So Memphis style is definitely an option for some people that perhaps have some of these products that you can see they have this wet or dry. So they do have some where they mop it and they brush it as they cook it, and some don't. So in Memphis, they have two different formats there. But ribs, Memphis ribs and pork butt, right? Pulled pork. Also, the creation of a true Memphis uh, restaurant, barbecue places, they have this thing called barbecue spaghetti. So that's kind of a unique thing. I don't know if people read about that or that could be something to mind. I do see some restaurants in Kansas City that do have this and they bring that Memphis style with them. And so that is on people's menus. So they also, Kansas City, and you find in Texas, they do this mashup between what is barbecue and what is border cuisine or Tex-Mex, where they make nachos with you know, burnt ends and brisket and smoked chicken and stuff on there. So that is also type of an option, right? So our third one is Texas barbecue, and you know, Texas we moved to beef. Texas is salt and pepper. It's got a more smoky flavor to it. We see brisket, beef ribs, right? Also pork, sausage, that type of stuff. But you know, so this would be a style to have beef. Clearly, we're in Kansas City, we're in Kansas, we are in beef country. Having beef on your menu, I think, is important for this. You know, for these people to come, I think they're going to come here to experience what is American beef, what is Kansas beef. You know, that's going to be a highlight for them to come get a locally, you know, uh, dish, you know, of what is real American beef. You know, so I think that that is, you know, always a good option. I mean, in Kansas City, we have our type of barbecue, so it's different. We smoke everything here, so we have, you know, a whole variety of different things. Burn ends is like our thing in Kansas City. Burn ends, the top of the point of the brisket, cooked extra long. It's got the fattiness in there, the richness in there. That is definitely a good go-to for, I think, an international guest that they would like to have. Um, so and you can see this is, you know, some different types of barbecue from chicken to pork loin to burn ends to ribs. So with some side dishes, right? Um, I think with barbecue, the comments that I would think about is one, we give huge portions. As I've had international guests come in and visit, they will, um, comment on the quantity of food that they're given when they order a meal. So from a cost standpoint, you could have additional menu items on your menu, um, and keep the cost in line by keeping the portion a little bit smaller. Adding, some nice, um, tart, palate cleansing type sides to your plates, um, and help balance out that cost wise, also flavor wise. So that is definitely something I think is an option there, you know. So, and then those are all of my barbecue pictures. So, as we move from regionally into nationally, regionally into what is or what would we do here in Kansas and Kansas City specifically? I think people are going to come here and they're going to look for what is, cuisines of here. What is local? What can we find here that's local? And celebrate those types of foods, right? So, uh, you know, one of the things we haven't talked about is dessert. I think, pies, right? Uh, you know, American apple pie. So I think apple pie is a good choice. But also there's other pies. We have, different types of berries and fruits and stuff that we can make pies. Pies are not a big thing internationally. So I think if we have it in a pie form, whether it's individual or a cut piece, I think that that is a good, option to add in. Um, you know, like I said, steakhouses. I would try to look for, what is, American beef. How can we get, how could we get onto our menu? And, many people do have some sort of beef on there, but how can we highlight that, make that a special thing, or bring in one special product that we could add to our menu to highlight, that we have this special thing. I've had several, chefs come here to the United States and they get so intrigued about, going to find beef and tasting it and tasting the difference and for them it's a great experience to have that, you know. Clearly in Kansas City we talked about burnt ends is a big thing. Um, Other things that are definitely Midwestern that are just right here, right, that we might do, chicken fried steak, right? A fried pork chop, you know, fried chicken. These things that people don't do in other countries. I mean, we see Korean fried chicken, but uh, we don't see out of a lot of the European countries or out of the South America where we have fried chicken. So I think that there's an opportunity there, um, depending upon your operation, to make that one of your choices or to bring one of those, or if you already have that on your menu, to make that a highlight for people that this is a dish that is specifically from our type of region, our area, from Kansas City, that we do. Um, so we'll talk about breakfast in a minute because I think breakfast is a big thing. But biscuits, fresh biscuits. This is a bread that's not necessarily seen in Europe, although they have scones. Biscuits are different, and they should be celebrated differently. And with or without gravy. Maybe it's a sandwich. They might like jam and jelly more than gravy, but you might have it with gravy. So, uh, chicken wings, right? I mean, we clearly have buffalo chicken wings, but here, smoked chicken wings. I think this is a unique thing that the United States we do, and they're delicious. Used to be more cost affordable than they are now, but hopefully that's still an option for people to celebrate something different inside the United States. You know, um, clearly we're the sunflower state. So if it was me making a menu, I would probably have sunflowers somewhere. I would put like a bread with sunflowers on it. I'd put them onto a salad, maybe something like this, and highlight this is a Kansas thing, you know. And again, I wrote down again, corn and corn dishes. Fresh corn. This the summer isn't necessarily corn season, but I think by the time they get here in June, July, the corn should start. So you should be starting to get fresh corn. And so it would be great to have a few corn dishes on there, not just cornbreads and stuff out of the meal, but have and celebrate what is the fresh corn that we enjoy here in our area, every summer. And so I think that people would enjoy, seeing what that is. Um, so breakfast options. I would talk about, uh, as we go through different meal periods and how I would approach serving people at different meal periods. For example, um, my uh, I would think about breakfast, lunch, dinner. So if there was an area where I thought that international travelers, and I know this because when I travel, would want to have something slightly more familiar, even though they're fine to eat whatever, is kind of natural, that would be a place where I might find something that's slightly more familiar to where they're from, based on what country that's playing here. So I might think about uh, what is a typical, things that we might see on a European buffet, or we might see for breakfast. Uh, you would see things like grilled tomatoes, seared mushrooms, you know, sausage and bacon, but the bacon is usually not cooked as crispy as we do, so maybe slightly softer. Um, hard-boiled eggs or soft-boiled eggs, right? Depending upon the country, sausages. So sliced, they would refer to sausages. So sliced meats. So you would have things like mortadella, capicola, right? Things that are softer in the morning. Some nice sliced cheese, a fresh roll and butter, right? If people more from uh, Central South America, the southern part of Europe, perhaps, a nice croissant, Danish, something sweet, a baguette with butter and coffee and jam. These would be offerings that you might have. They probably eat a little bit less. I think they're used to coffee, but depending upon the country, having a selection of hot teas might be uh, might be a thing, to keep in mind. Um, so, but then lunchtime, right? I think most countries around the world, lunch is the larger meal. So I would, and you'd have to think about when are the games at for that too. So that would make a difference in my thought process because we don't know that schedule yet. But the I would think people would eat a larger um, lunch and maybe a more milder, softer, maybe dessert-driven dinner. So you might think about your lunches and how you can promote that and find some volume there. Excuse me. So so I would keep that in mind. Like people gather, eat for lunch. If the games are in the evening, they would gather, eat. So you might have your larger meals, your most amount of people that might, end up in your area uh, during lunchtime. Now, dinner, right? Again, like I said, probably smaller portions, lighter type food, maybe things like dessert would be choices. So having some nice locally thought about desserts would be good for people in the evening. The other thing that I find is that we have here in the United States, we have this salad culture. We have this uh, from the 1970s coming out of California where we created the entree salad. We have this salad culture where we come in and we eat salads as entrees with stuff on it. And I tend to not see that as uh often in other countries. Matter of fact, I don't think I've ever seen it, but I've been to every country. I've just been about five, 5 or 6, but I haven't not seen that. So I think that that would be a good way on my menu to highlight, what is, kind of an American cuisine, things I already have on my menu, things that people would be drawn to by highlighting that in a certain way to try and uh, show that off. To have a good summertime Kansas, you know, lots of fresh vegetables. I think this is a great opportunity to show off how good our produce is, how good our farmers are, how well that we get the products that we get because I don't find the same quality in other countries. And so I think this is a great time to take advantage of that. I used to work with a guy and he'd say when the produce is cheap, it's usually the best. When it's expensive, it's usually not. So in the summertime, as the produce starts to, roll in and be its highest quality, it's usually the most affordable to buy and use it as well. So that would be something. Uh, so uh, the next thing I'd like to maybe just highlight on is uh, beverages. Okay. So we have beverages is another choice or another area that we should consider or think about. Just to start off, just with water. Most international travels drink bottled water. They don't drink tap water. I mean, we have great tap water here. It's totally clean. It works out really well for us, but internationally, we usually are always given a choice of bottled water. And so the choice is usually still or gas. So they have carbonated mineral waters that they call gas. So they'll say, would you like your water still or with gas? So I would familiarize myself with that term, but having a nice sparkling water of your choice, whatever you may already have one, I would make sure that I had plenty of it around because I think that internationally they drink a lot of it. Um, so the other thing is think about beverages that are local beers. Depending upon the country, they're going to want to experience the beverages of the United States, and we have great beers here. So, in Kansas City, I would think about that. We have distilleries here. What about those, and how can we highlight those products, for extra sales inside our operations? And then I will tell you, growing in popularity all around the world is uh Kentucky bourbon. So I know my international friends as they travel back home to their countries, they always bring bottles of this Kentucky bourbon to their family members that request it. So I would think about having what is a really nice, Kentucky bourbon based on the average check of my restaurant. What's the nicest one I could have and find what's one that's known and have that available because I think they're going to be, this would be, definitely a choice, a request there. I would be uh, thoughtful about the amount of ice that I put into glasses for European travelers. They don't use as much ice as we do. We get a bottle of water, we ask for a glass, we get ice in it. If I do that, they give me about half a glass of ice. And their thought process is it's already cold, and if you put ice in it, then it's not bottled water anymore. So the same thing with your beverages. If you drink an alcoholic beverage, with a still or sparkling water, if you put ice in it, you're really diluting both of those down. So they have a different theory there than we do. But anyway, so I would keep, that in mind. Uh, as far as breakfast is concerned, I would think about if you have a restaurant with this and you have juices, I would think about what is fresh squeezed over concentrate or from concentrate. In the United States, we have our fruit juices, but we add, quite a bit of sugar to them, where in other countries they are a little bit more natural. They don't add the sugar, and so they're not used to how sweet our products are. So if you could think of a juice or something, if you had that, if that was an option on your menu, or if you thought that was an option, that might be a way to go or thought process that I would have for that. Um, and then uh, one other thing that I was think I should mention is like I would try to market myself to the guest. And so, depending upon which games we have, which countries, I assume that we have 6 games here, so I could see us having part of a flight of one of the brackets, and we see those games play out here. So we would probably have the same teams play um, for those 6 games, or then some will get knocked out, but and then um, uh, if I was to have my restaurant, I would probably take like the flags of those countries and put them outside my restaurant, my operation, to welcome them in, to say, hey, listen, we know you're here and we want you to come see us, and we'd like to take care of you and show you the things of from our area, our region, our city that we can offer you. And so I might try and, lend a hand out to say, welcome, thank you, and try and do that. And I think by having some sort of notification that you recognize that they're here, I think that that is a kind of a good way to go. So, and then let me see here. I have one other uh, document here I wanted to show. Uh, so just to go back on what is the Kentucky hot brown and some of the dishes. I forgot to show this picture earlier, but so this is from the Brown Hotel in Kentucky. But you could see that it's something that is traditionally American, definitely developed here, regionally local, and could fit into people's skews. Texas toast with smoked turkey, Mornay sauce, right? Gratinade with some bacon and broiled tomato. It's topped with some Parmesan cheese, but Mornay sauce, Parmesan cheese, Gruyere cheese, and then that's just finished with a little bit on top. But very delicious. When I was in Louisville, I went to the Brown Hotel. I had this. It is a great luncheon dish. It is definitely unique. Not that I'm trying to tell everybody to put that on their menu, but I'm just saying that there are other things like this that are specifically from our region, from our area, from Kansas City, that we can find and highlight that an individual might have, and then eggs Benedict, right? Classically, we see this around for breakfast places, but we don't see that internationally. So, it's out of Delmonico's out of New York from, the turn of the century. So anyway, I thought I would share those pictures with you. Um, so, uh, yeah, so, you know, in you know, restaurant operation, if I was running it, I would try to look for, what are the restaurants around me and what are they offering? Because if I have these same people that are going from point A to point B and they're taking the same pathway, because there's so many people, it's hard to get out of that pathway, and you're trying to find different places along that way. I would try to find, what is my unique option? What makes me unique to the guy next to me? And highlight that and try and make that a choice. People probably eat at a place once or twice. If you're located close to where they're staying, they may go there for beverages on a daily or multiple time basis, but typically they'll probably go from one place to another place to another place. So it'd be great to try and, offer something that, if I looked around, what is everybody else doing? And can I do something that's unique to me, to my operation, that fits in with my SKUs? What products I'm already bringing in? Who do I know from a purveyor, from a vendor, from a local, distributor on food, vegetables, meats, and what can I bring in? You know, so that would be my thought process there. Again, uh, I know that if you don't have a barbecue grill, it's hard to have barbecue, and so people may even though we have 60 barbecue restaurants in Kansas City, all that thrive and all have different styles and have those different styles that I explained, there still may not be space for everybody to get in at once and or get there throughout their trip. So if you had an offering like that in your restaurant, whether you go to your local purveyor and get a pre-made product, right, that is specifically for one type of a sandwich entree, uh, that might be an option because you know you want to have something that you offer. And a lot of times I'm going to say, we put all these options out there, but people have really good restaurants in Kansas City in the state of Kansas, and they have this uniqueness about them, and the reason that they thrive and survive is because they've already made something great that are a destination that people go to. And so sometimes that's the decision, is like, we have what we have and we do a great job of it, and we need to just put ourselves out there and say we do this and we do this great, and that's why we survive, and come see us and see what we do. But you know you also might want to add a barbecue item on there and not have to go, do I have to go buy a smoker? Do I have to buy all this other equipment? It has to be cost affordable. Otherwise, all the money you make, you're just going to waste on the expenses of trying to do it. Whereas maybe just changing one product can give you an offering. So somebody goes like, I like barbecue, but can't get into all the barbecue joints. And we come to your place because we think it's really good, everything. And then you have an option for, that as well. So. Um, Anyway, at this time, if I could open it up for any questions, that would be, if I can figure out how to do the questioning thing.
Chef, thank you so much. And that made me really hungry. It's awfully dangerous that we just had that presentation right before lunchtime. I know I have some questions from you, but I definitely want to give our attendees a chance to ask some questions first.
All right. Are they gonna?
Um, well, while people are thinking about the questions that they might have, a question that I have is, I wonder if you have any thoughts about what I know things need to be scheduled around games and people are going to matches and people are going to be eating around the matches and their travel schedules and so forth. But apart from that, what are your thoughts about what times international travelers might be having their meals? Like, are they going to be having you talked about having big lunches. Are they going to be having lunches later in the day, perhaps? Or are they going to be there right at noon? And then also, I know something that I've seen when I've traveled to places that were having a large influx of travelers at the same time. Dinner reservations didn't just have a start time, they also had an end time. Like your reservation was from 6 to 8 or 7 to 9. What are your thoughts about some of those timing issues that go along with the meals?
Um, yeah, so I do think that for sure you have to take into consideration the games, but internationally you find that people do take their lunches a little bit later. So they would probably have their businesses or operations open, and then uh they might eat a little bit later. Although when I was in Italy, we went to lunch at noon, and noon to 2 is a pretty good lunchtime. But I think that there's also people that eat a little bit later. But yeah, to the other point, um of you know timing, right? What was your second part of your question? Was uh
Yeah, like what do you see as timing issues
for
around when meals are
reservation.
served? How long people will be likely to stay at the restaurant? How do you handle those timing
Yeah, for the
expectations?
reservations, yes, you will find that in other countries have been to Europe, and they do have a time slot that they put you in. Normally for a reservation, they don't have not like I get my table for the whole night, so they want to have a turn. And there's a couple restaurants in Kansas City that kind of have that same philosophy. But I think that's up to the operator. Yes, you want to be able to turn. and get people in and out. It would depend on the type of restaurant, in my opinion, on whether I would do that or not. Um, but you do want the volume. You want to try and increase it. If I had a smaller restaurant, I don't have that many seats, I would probably try to get as many eyes on me as possible. And so I'd probably try and say, hey, we need you to, fit into this time slot. If I have a huge restaurant, 400 or 500 seats, I might not be so, diligent on that because I can get enough people in there. You know, bigger restaurants down the Power Light, they have huge volume of people and stuff. So.
So it sounds like it's a matter of balancing efficiency against delivering great customer service and making people feel welcome and not rushed out the door.
Yeah, definitely you have to think about that stuff and you know we it, so in about I think it's 12 to 14 days we have 6 matches. So there's going to be on days and off days. And so those volume of people coming and going could change based on that. You know what I mean? Like the day that you don't have a game, you might see a huge volume of people compared to the day when everyone's just trying to fight, eat, and go to the game. So the day that you have a game, they might be eating faster, turning the tables faster, trying to get them, trying to get on their way because the travel could be extended based on the amount of volume of people and travel and vehicles. And then the off day may be a little bit more leisurely. I'm going to stay around the location in which I am staying at and eat there locally. Some people may have tickets or buy tickets to go to the practice facilities to watch the practices, but those stadiums are smaller and more limited in the amount of volume of people. So,
Okay, thank you. And I'll just keep going with questions until somebody indicates that they have a question. Um, I really loved the way that you drew attention to the opportunity to feature foods from the Americas, traditional US dishes, as well as Kansas City specialties. When people are doing that, do you have any tips for how they might present them to make them attractive for the international travelers to, really meet and exceed expectations, or any tips about like the food service itself?
well, from a service standpoint, um, we don't quite have as formal or as precise of a service style in the United States as we see overseas. So um, trying to work on that, I think would be good, but I think that's a different module that you have. So I
Okay.
think somebody else is going to address that. But I do think that that's a good thing, right? To try and be a little bit more formal. Formal is the wrong word, but to be a little bit more precise is probably a better word. But as far as the foods, and presentation, right? I would present them simply in the most clean format that I could, right? So if I have a really nice steak that I've bought and I'm going to cook it for this customer, I wouldn't over season it with too much spices. I wouldn't add too many sauces to go on it. I wouldn't make my accompaniments be too overpowering. I would make it very simple. I'd say, like, here's a steak. We put salt and pepper on it. We're going to serve it with a very nice fresh vegetable that's from our, local gardens or local farms just around the corner. And do I put some sort of starch on there, potato, and I would make that um, very clean and highlight those fresh products in that way. If I was doing something a little bit more regionally and like from Louisiana or somewhere else, you might incorporate those dishes in as a traditional standpoint as you can find. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. And great advice to really let the food shine and not overwhelm it with trying to be too creative with lots of different sauces and toppings and so forth. And then I guess one other question is, are there any mistakes that you feel like you sometimes see restaurants making when they're selecting the dishes that they're going to be serving for international guests?
I would say the biggest kind of mistake I think I see people do is they try to cook the food from the countries in which those people came from. Right. I would stay away from that. As I travel, uh, I don't go there to eat, American food. I go there to eat the food of that country. So I would try to stay away from developing something. Okay, we know country A, country B, country C are coming here, and then we're going to try and make some traditional dishes from their countries for them. I think this would be a mistake. We don't have the product. We probably are not as good of a cook as they are at their own food. And they're coming here to highlight, and to taste and experience the stuff that we have. I would be hyper vigilant on what can I find locally, what can I get as the best, highest quality and present to them. And I think that will be a big win. In my opinion, I think that that is a great way to look at it.
And so, do you have suggestions for how early people need to start planning this and working with their suppliers, and especially if they're creating some new dishes?
Well, you have to you have to correct me. I'm not sure the date, but as soon as they release the brackets and we know which teams are playing in which stadiums, that's when I would start planning.
Okay.
I would once as soon as I know that and I know what times the games are and I know who's going to be playing what games where, then I would be like, oh, okay, let's try and define where a when these meal periods are going to be heavy, right? And then, the other thing too is like I might reach out with the hotel and lodging industry that's locally around me and say, "Hey, how are your guys' reservations? What do those look like? What does your occupancy look like and how far away, what's locally to me, what's close to me?" And so I know what those places are. Can I go there and be one of their, suggested restaurants to give to their guests as they come in? What can I put together that offers something that says I am different? I come here, experience American food, cuisine, Kansas, whatever it is that you develop, and highlight that so they say, hey, that looks like a good destination. It's close, it's on our way. I mean, you want to maybe be a destination from people further away too, but you know, I'd start with the low hanging fruit and then work on the other stuff as I'm going along.
Well, great advice. Any closing thoughts that you'd like to share?
Uh, I mean, the only thing I would say is that I think it's going to be exciting time for Kansas, for Kansas City. I look forward to seeing, the successes that are going to go on with the different restaurants. I'm sure there's going to be magnificent stories about how they, took care of guests, built relationships. I mean, there's a news broadcast I saw that, it was a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, but there's a family, and I forget where they're from. They're like from Indiana or they're from Wisconsin or something. And they came to Kansas City and they ate at one of the barbecue restaurants. And now once a year on their anniversary, they take a trip and they fly in and they go to that restaurant and they get back on a plane and they fly back home in one day. And so I think that this opportunity to make friends internationally, let Kansas City be known, is a great opportunity. And I think there's going to be a lot of successes there. And I can't wait to see those stories and see how that turns out for us.
Well, thank you. Great advice. It definitely is an exciting opportunity to let Kansas and Kansas City and the greater region be better known to the world. And like you said, also, make friends and develop relationships. So really appreciate your tips today. A lot of great information. I will share that next week on November 18th, we have cultural aspects of French business communication. On November 21st, how to develop rapport with international travelers. And December 4th, understanding dietary restrictions and food preferences of international travelers. And then a number more coming up in 2026. So, Chef Adele, thank you so much for your time today and taking the time to share some great photos and really interesting suggestions for dishes and dish presentation. And to people who are here live today, thank you for being here. And again, we will have this available recorded and online for people to view as they're able, as they get ready for international travelers. So thank you, everyone.